Avery Quinn is about to get her big break as a substitute news anchor when someone breaks into her home on Christmas Eve. He claims to be Chris, the son of Santa Claus, and her journey with him makes him realize many things she wasn't willing to believe. As a researcher at Channel 71 News in Dayton, Avery confidently practices delivering the news for that day as an anchor. She gets interrupted by her boss, who wants her story on the prompter. The real anchors for that piece, Misty McAllen and Bink Bynkerson, share the top story of the day about former Mayor Hewitt Vance, who has been accused of corruption in his Christmas Care Foundation by his right-hand man, who has claimed Hewitt uses the funds personally. Hewitt claims to be innocent, and thinks Peter Mayhew is just a disgruntled ex-employee. The investigation hasn't produced any results yet, but Peter is firm with these allegations. Talia asks Avery if she has heard that their boss Nancy wants to meet her later, to inform her about the weekend anchor job she auditioned for. Avery is famous anchor Sophie Ashburn's daughter, but she doesn't want to use that to her advantage. Talia thinks she'll still be a lot better than their current anchors. Nancy breaks it to a nervous Avery that the network doesn't think she's ready to be an anchor yet. Avery admits she was nervous and fumbled in her audition, but Nancy reminds her there are no second takes in news. She knows even her mother didn't get it right the first time, and is determined to be an anchor and tell a story only she can tell. Misty tries to comfort her about not getting the weekend anchor job, and admits Avery has big shoes to fill because of her mother. She also shares how she got two nose jobs, and thinks if Avery wants to be an anchor, she needs to dress the part, since looks matter a lot in their industry. She also suggests ways in which she can look younger before leaving. Talia has overheard everything, and makes fun of Misty's nose job. She still agrees with her, and thinks Avery needs to make the people at the network notice her. Avery greets her neighbor Becca before heading home, where her mother tries to assure her on call that things will work out for her eventually. She has sent over some presents, but her dad is upset she's not joining them for Christmas. Sophie thinks her outfit is exactly like what she wore for her first national interview, and even Avery thinks since Misty dresses like this, it might work in her favor. She hears Misty presenting the news about a Santa crook, who is attacking and robbing people in their homes in a Santa outfit. On Christmas Eve, Talia loves Avery's power outfit. She informs Avery about the anchor's curse at the office party, where there's a lot of commotion, because Misty has laryngitis and has lost her voice. No other anchor is available because of the holidays, including Bink, since Misty was supposed to do the 5 o'clock news alone on Christmas morning. Avery approaches the network executive and explains that, even if they can't give her the weekend anchor job, she's ready to step in for Misty. It's just for one broadcast on Christmas morning which no one watches, so it's not too risky to give it to her, and she's confident that she will not let them down. Avery somehow gets the gig, and knows she needs to look fresh the next morning for her Christmas broadcast. She unpacks gifts from her mother and keeps them under the tree, before switching on news about the Santa crook amid the storm. She decides to get some sleep, but wakes up in the middle of the night when she hears something. She bravely steps out of her room and finds a man taking off his Santa robe, who falls and loses consciousness. She tries to call for help, but doesn't get any signal because of the storm. She still ties him up with Christmas lights and tries to wake him up. He's surprised she noticed him, since he followed all protocols. She thinks he's a thief, the Santa crook, but he claims he came in the regular way and needs to leave. When she threatens to take him to the police, he assures her there's a misunderstanding, and knows his dad will be very upset. He claims he's the new Santa Claus, or Chris, and needs to make his rounds on Christmas Eve to deliver gifts. He politely asks her to untie him, but when she refuses, he notices how strongly it is wired. She can't let him go and rob other people, but he shows her his watch with latitude and longitude indicators for traveling over hemispheres, to convince her about who he is. He's upset, since it's already 11:22 p.m. and he needs to deliver a lot more gifts before sunrise. Avery is impressed with his commitment towards his Santa story, but he blames her for jeopardizing Christmas by not letting him go. She wants him to admit he's the Santa crook, but he sticks to his story, and claims he even got a gift for her. It has Becca's name on it, and he's disappointed to know he delivered to the wrong house. He's doing rounds for the first time and failing at it. But he knows her real name, and claims only Santa would know about it. She's sure he's also a stalker, but decides to play along and asks if she has been good or bad. He lists basic areas where he thinks she has been bad, but she knows he needs to do better to convince her that he's Santa. A lot of intel is supposed to be transferred to the new Santa, but he's not able to connect properly, and feels embarrassed he is not completing the most important task of his life. He urges her to think about how bad Becca will feel when she doesn't get the organic chemistry kit she asked for from Santa. She thinks he's shameless for stealing a girl's gift, but agrees to go to her house with him to drop it off. His right-hand man, Dylan, informs his superior that he has lost contact with Chris after they almost got caught by security patrol, and is unable to contact him because of bad cell reception. The man asks Dylan to look for him in the last house they visited. He calls Chris, but Avery breaks his phone so he can't get in touch with his other criminal accomplices. She still thinks it would be amazing for her job if she breaks the story about catching the Santa crook, and knows Nancy will notice her if she does. Her plan is to go with him to Becca's house, after which she'll take him to the police herself. Chris tries to run away, but falls down while struggling, and Avery helps him get back up. She's frustrated because she needs to rest before delivering the news in the morning, but is stuck with him instead. He also knows her mother, Sophie Ashburn, and is excited she's a news anchor. She gives him another chance to prove he's Santa by asking about the most meaningful gift she has ever received. He initially claims his Santa skills aren't working, but gets an image of a diary. He can't see the details, but instantly knows she's a good person. Thinking that he's crazy, she rings Becca's doorbell, but no one answers. She tries to leave the gift on the doorstep, but Chris needs to follow a protocol and has to leave it under the tree. He feels good people deserve good things, and it will break his heart if Becca doesn't get her gift. His plan is to open the door with a special set of keys, since going down the chimney only works when there are reindeer on the roof. She doesn't know how he managed to open the door, and is also hesitant to trespass on a property like this. Since his hands are tied, she needs to take the gift inside while he tries to eat a cookie. He knows Becca expects a bite to be taken out of it, and insists the cravings for milk and cookies is real. As she takes him to the car, he tries to reason with her that taking him to the police will occupy her for hours. Ricky from the alarm company is sure he has caught the Santa crook, since the alarm was tripped for Becca's house, and they seem to be intruders. He doesn't believe Avery is innocent, and thinks she's throwing her partner under the bus by blaming him for being the Santa crook alone. He doesn't have the authority to arrest them, but has requested for backup. This commotion gives Chris the time to get into the car, and he asks Avery to join him. She has no choice, since Ricky has reported her number plate as that of the Santa crook. At Vista Road, a man is injured while trying to fight the real Santa crook, and informs the police about his safe being robbed. Avery knows she won't get any sleep before she reads the news in the morning, and thinks about how disappointed her mother will be. They hear about the real Santa crook being in Vista Road, and she finally wonders who Chris is. She can't find her phone, and now that she knows he's not the Santa crook, she doesn't want to deal with him. He runs after her so she can free him, since he can't leave her alone on the road. He gets a clearer flash of the pivotal gift Avery got in her childhood that set her down her chosen path. When she was 6 years old, she received a leather-bound journal with "Dig Deeper" written on it. For the first time, Avery is amazed, since she can't imagine how Chris could know about this. They're interrupted by a man checking her car and decide to watch from a distance. Dylan has reached Avery's house and notices Chris's phone is broken. He's required to tell Santa about this goof-up, but he's nervous, since this is his first job. Avery's address is in the car the man is searching, and she recognizes him as the former head of security when Hewitt was the mayor. She feels like he shouldn't have a police scanner, and plans to contact Talia to get to the bottom of the story. Chris promises to stick around and help her if she unties him, but the man starts approaching them and they need to run. They knock on a door to use their phone, and a creepy man lets them in. They're afraid to go inside, and when they enter, the man introduces himself as the director of the theater troupe, Louis Dolly. They perform Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, for which they have won a lot of Tony's pizzas. He introduces them to the players like Ebenezer Scrooge, Bob Cratchit, and Tiny Tim. He compliments Chris's outfit, and wants to know who does his costume. Louis insists that if she wants to use the phone, she needs to become a member of their troupe. But she needs to audition for it, and Chris assures her that if she digs deeper, she can pull this off. When everyone cheers, she angrily shouts at them and starts ranting about the horrible day she has had. Her rant receives a standing ovation, and she is instantly chosen as a member. She reveals that she is a reporter who needs to use their phone, so Louis takes her to it so she can call Talia. A man approaches Chris, since he has an urge to tell him what he wants for Christmas. Avery gets Talia's answering machine, so she decides to check if the computer is working. When she comes out, she hears Chris telling Louis about the pivotal gift he got as a child, and he guesses it correctly. She appreciates how he managed to bring childhood wonder back to everyone present there, and wonders if he's actually Santa. He claims there's a lot of mystery in the world, and some things are hard to explain. He does mention that Santa is his dad, but he's also currently working as the new Santa. From her research, she has found that after Ricky called in her plates, there was another call about a man in a Santa suit and a female accomplice who stole a flash drive on Vista Road. They know for sure that Hewitt is looking for his flash drive, which is the only way to clear her name, since everyone thinks they are the Santa crooks. Chris needs to deliver his presents before sunrise, but he wants to help her out first. Louis shows them the news about cops looking for fugitives who look exactly like them. Avery insists it's a case of mistaken identity, and Louis assures her that they don't judge, and they're welcome to celebrate with them. Hewitt's man closes in on their location, and knows they are somewhere in the area. Avery and Chris discuss how they can track down the real thieves and get the flash drive. He also gets a call back from Dylan, who connects him with his dad, and he tries to explain that he's handling the situation. Santa threatens to come down himself, and gives him a last chance to make things right. Avery knows something is wrong with Chris, but he's more interested in what she has found. She has a general idea of where the thieves might be, and feels like they might attack again that night. Chris is impressed by everything she has managed to find, and explains that his night was a mess even before he met her. But he feels more like Santa now. Avery thinks she's his secret weapon, but he just somehow knows he's supposed to help her. Hewitt's man enters the party and they hide from him, but everyone has their backs, and Tim also manages to scare him out of the place. He keeps waiting at the door since he knows they have to come out eventually, and Avery suggests they can use some wigs. Pretending to be actors in convincing wigs, Lewis helps them sneak out of the place in his van. He drops them outside her office, and right when Avery feels grateful for having such amazing friends, someone comes out of another van and kidnaps them. As they're tied up together, she tries to explain they're not the Santa crooks, but Hewitt's man has decided to visit her house for the flash drive while they wait there. They know they need to figure out a plan to get out, and hold hands while they're tied together. Dylan is feeding the reindeers when he gets a call asking him to go back to Avery's house to look for Chris. It's very important to save the night before Santa comes down. The real Santa crook and his accomplice Mandy also get kidnapped by Hewitt's men. Avery is trying hard to untie herself, and is imagining what people would say about Sophie Ashburn's daughter choking again. Chris understands what it's like to have intimidating parents, and he's also upset because half the world's children will not get their gifts. The Santa title might also be stripped from his family. She apologizes for dragging him into her mess just to break a story, but he reminds her she's already smart, accomplished, and beautiful, and doesn't need to prove anything. Since she feels like a scared little kid, Chris recalls everything that happened that night, from threatening to take him to the police to giving a monologue in front of a room full of people, and knows she doesn't show any signs of being a scared kid. He knows they can't compete with their parents, but they can at least be the best versions of themselves. Meanwhile, Hewitt's man breaks into Avery's house as Dylan watches. The Santa crooks also arrive at the same location Avery and Chris are being held at, and understand what the confusion is about, since they look very similar. Avery manages to free herself and helps Chris too, but before they can get up, the Santa crooks ask how they got there. They pretend to still be tied up, and mention something about a flash drive. Chris pretends to be Santa Crook's fan, but this starts a fight between him and Mandy since she thinks he gets all the credit on the news, and no one notices her. While they're arguing with their backs to them, Chris and Avery try to run away, but sit back again on opposite chairs. When they ask what's on the drive everyone is looking for, Santa Crook mentions that he wasn't supposed to look at it. Mandy knows he has said too much, and discusses with him about needing to get out soon, so they can meet someone at the drop-off point to deliver the flash drive. Avery and Chris overhear the location where they need to deliver the drive. One of the kidnappers gets excited when he finds the drive, and runs to call their boss. They take their chance and snatch it. Avery is excited about finding out who is waiting at the drop-off, and finally clearing her name. Hewitt's man is relieved that his men found the drive, and decides to return after informing his boss. Dylan gets into the boot of his car so he can reach Chris. He gets angry when he learns Chris and Avery have escaped with the flash drive, and wants everyone to find them. The Santa crook also manages to free himself of the ropes. Avery and Chris try to get a phone so she can reach the location by 3, and he can make it to his team. Chris doesn't want to abandon her when she's supposed to go to a shady place, and plans to accompany her. It's already 2:43, but Avery thinks they can make it in time. They spot the kidnapper's car coming towards them, and try to hide till they're clear and begin searching for the phone. When they miss a taxi, the kidnapper's car comes again, and they look for open cars to hide in. When they find one, Avery asks Chris to take his coat off, while she wears a cap to hide from them. She asks him to trust her, and starts kissing him. They keep kissing as the man nears them, and come off as a random couple making out in a car. They're overwhelmed after the kiss, but Chris thinks it was a very smart plan. They notice someone else in the car, and Avery takes his phone. She manages to open it with his face recognition to order a taxi, and Chris continues to be amused by how efficient she is with everything. They reach their destination, and find a woman waiting there. Avery wants a closer look, so she takes his hand pretending to be a couple, and strikes up a conversation so they can pass by her. She realizes that the woman is Elizabeth Mayhew, Peter Mayhew's wife, who accused Hewitt of corruption. She explains to Chris that Peter got fired and tried to sue Hewitt for wrongful termination. They know whatever is on that drive is related to the conflict between them, and since Peter seems sure he saw 2 sets of accounting records, it feels like he set up the robberies to make it look like a serial theft, when he was just trying to get to Hewitt's safe to get the drive. She knows that if she is right, she can break this news and take both of them down. The Santa crooks get into a car, but Officer Billings come over and asks them to step outside. She informs them that the car was reported stolen, and calls for backup. She thinks she has found the Santa crook, but the man corrects her and mentions they're a team of 2 people. Avery and Chris approach her house, where she finds her phone in the snow. She's relieved it's still working, so Chris can call Dylan to get his deliveries done. Avery notices that her house has been broken into, and is in very bad condition. But her laptop is safe, and she knows she can cry later, after working. Chris has spoken to Dylan and knows that his dad is coming. Avery wants to take the blame, since she ruined his Christmas, but he thinks he has already broken many rules. She points out how kind and generous he was with everyone that night, and how he even inspired the theater troupe. She knows if she has to defend him in front of Santa, she's willing to do it. Chris is grateful for this, and leans in to kiss her. But just then, Santa and Dylan come out of the chimney. Santa is angry and wants an explanation, but Avery reminds Chris that this is his destiny, and he needs to fight for himself. Chris thinks Santa shouldn't have come down, since he knows he finally feels like himself. Santa isn't happy that he went missing, and was mingling with thespians, but Chris thinks he was exactly where he needed to be. He knows he will still do the job before sunrise, and understands that he was struggling to connect with his Santa self all night. But he remembered his own pivotal gift that Santa gave him. Thinking about that small bear made him realize who he needs to be, and he realizes that he wants to give people the same feeling. Santa feels like Chris has finally owned his boots, like he keeps telling him to, and is furious with himself for being too hard on him. He should have known his son has everything under control, and is very proud of Chris. Hewitt is angry Avery got away again and is heading to her house, since he knows she will give him the flash drive. Avery learns from the drive that Peter was right all along, and Hewitt does have two accounts. Hewitt walks into her house and claims to have done a lot of good for the world with his charity. Avery doesn't get how office renovations, private jets or Ferrari are helping people, but he thinks she doesn't have the whole story. But Santa knows Hewitt grew up in difficult circumstances, and used his intellect to get where he is, but kept his past with him and became greedy. Hewitt claims to not know what they're talking about, but insists he's a powerful man, and asks Avery to give the drive to him. When he approaches her, she hands it over, but informs him that she has already sent the files to the station, so if anything happens to her, the police will know where to look. Santa also reminds Hewitt that he has trespassed on private property, and as the alarm company people come to them with backup, Ricky is more than happy he's going to be arrested. It's 4:46, and Avery is freaking out about her show, so Chris announces that they're dropping her. Nancy doesn't understand why Avery isn't there yet, and asks Talia to fill in for her if she doesn't come in the next few minutes. Avery makes a few calls about getting her story to Nancy and the graphics team, but she thinks she can't make it to her office in just 6 minutes. She's also excited to see the sleigh with the reindeers, and Santa assures her that this vehicle doesn't follow the general rules of transportation. Talia is getting hyper, so Nancy asks her to imagine all the viewers in their underwear. She gets the printout of the mail from Avery, and feels like it's a great story, but they're on air in 3 minutes, so she asks Talia to take her position. Avery has reached her office, but isn't dressed for the part, but Santa and Chris assure her she can do it, and they believe in her. They're about to go on air soon, and she runs into her office and breaks everything on the way. She picks up a random blazer and throws Talia off her chair just seconds before they are about to go on air. She seems very relaxed on air, and confidently breaks the story about Hewitt, and what their channel has learned exclusively about Peter's allegations. While Misty sulks in bed and thinks she could have done the news piece, Officer Billings thinks Hewitt has bigger things to worry about. After concluding the story about the Santa crooks confidently, she gives her closing statement, and everyone at the channel is very proud of her, including her mother, who was watching at home. Chris finds her outside the office, and she informs him about getting the weekend anchor job. She knows she couldn't have done it without his help, and wonders where her car is. Chris has also finished all his rounds, except one gift that he needs to give her. He gives her some boots to remind her that she is owning her boots and has achieved everything she set out to do. He also invites her to visit him in the north. They discuss how crazy the night was as they walk, and Chris makes some snow fall on them. While she's impressed, he kisses her and asks if she wants a warm breakfast in Bali. He takes her to the sleigh, but she doesn't know what she'll tell people about how they met. He thinks they can just say it was a Christmas miracle, and are excited to spend this Christmas with each other.